Welcome to Mondays with Chief of the North. I'm Seth Kaiser here on RGR Football, the Chief in the North, because, well, if you looked outside, you'd see a beautiful blue sky, but also still like 3 feet of snow because I am from the North. Every Monday we try. We did not last week because we knew free agency was going to change basically everything by the time I got anything to you. I try to bring a little bit of information to you guys in terms of what I think are some of the most important storylines in Chiefs Kingdom right now. And right now, obviously, what's going on is free agency. Since the last time you and I have talked, the Chiefs went out and they signed Jawan Taylor, but they've also made a number of other moves in terms of what they're going to be doing on the defensive side of the ball, signing Charles Omenihu, defensive line, Drue Tranquill, a linebacker, and Mike Edwards, a safety. I'm going to talk just a little bit about each one of those, and we're going to maybe just walk through what I think the roster is at right now, because they've had a lot of departures in free agency, and whether or not I believe there's still some holes to be filled, maybe what some options there are to do that. We'll see how much we can get through in a short amount of time. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff there, support Ryan and the good people who do good work on this channel. Not so much me, because I'm not one of those good people. The first thing that we talked about last week during mailbag stuff, as we tried to look at a few things, the most important signing that the Chiefs have made was to bring Jawan Taylor to Kansas City. They essentially picked him over Orlando Brown Jr. Brown is obviously now with the Bengals in a move that, if you're to believe some of the reporting at The Athletic, at least by the guy who covers the Bengals, it at least appears that Brown's people may have reached out to the Bengals. Maybe once things fell apart with the Chiefs, it's hard to say. But he ended up taking a massively smaller contract at $16 million a year over 4 years than what he was looking for last year, and what he reportedly at least turned down last year. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic there, where I wonder if the Chiefs would have signed him for more than that, but still less than what he was initially asking for. But that's neither here nor there, because the Chiefs went out, they signed Jawan Taylor, and I couldn't be happier about the signing, to be perfectly honest. One of the things that you look for with an offensive tackle is their feet, and Taylor's feet, you kind of like, and I talked about this last week, he's like a bizarre Orlando Brown in that he wins down here with his feet by beating defenders to the spot. And so I reviewed multiple games of his. You can check it out at the Chief of the North newsletter. He generally did a terrific job in pass protection, not just good or above average, but a genuinely terrific job in pass protection. He's a guy I'm really excited about. Of course, he's not the only signing that we've had. We've had a lot going on in free agency in terms of plugging holes, I would say. The Chiefs went out and they signed Charles Omenihu, who is a player that I really didn't know much about before going back and looking at some of his film. And he's 94 right here, utilizing one of his very favorite moves from the interior, where he uses a double-handed swipe to swipe aside the hands and then uses explosion to corner just a little bit and close. He loves using that from when he's rushing from a defensive tackle spot, which was approximately half his snaps, a little more so last year. So what's interesting to me with him is that he's not necessarily a pure replacement along the edge, because that's not always where he was playing. He was often matched up against guards. That said, had he been with the Chiefs last year, I think he probably would have been their second best pass rusher, and I'm not sure it would have been all that close, to be perfectly frank. He's a good signing. He's someone I'm really excited about. You can go check him out on the Chief of the North newsletter as well. And then, of course, obviously we have over the last few days, you see the Chiefs kind of grabbing roster filler guys, but not quite in the sense that you would think. The most recent signing that I wrote about is Drue Tranquil, who Chiefs fans should be very familiar with. He's played a ton of snaps against them for the last several years. And with Tranquil, he's another film review to go check out at the newsletter. I'm just plugging the newsletter left and right today, but that's because I'm writing about all these guys. They signed him for a 1-year agreement, and here's what I would say with him if you watch him right here. This snap does not look like much of anything to most people. But watch how he only takes about a single step in reaction to the play action, and he recognizes the route that's coming across the field here. This is the first read from Mahomes. This play action right here is supposed to drag him out of the way, or he's supposed to lack the ability to semi-backpedal to stay in position in the throwing lane. But Tranquil is very, very comfortable in coverage. He's comfortable getting depth. He's comfortable moving laterally and vertically in terms of getting where he needs to be and changing direction. He's very comfortable in coverage. And that's what makes him such an interesting signing to me. The Chiefs, by and large, are set at linebacker. They performed really well during the Super Bowl. They really like Nick Bolton. They like Willie Gay Jr., although they have taken him off the field a little bit more than Bolton, but I digress. They like Leo Chanel. The interesting thing with Tranquill is that he is at his best as a coverage linebacker. He started off as a safety way back when. He's only weighs about 230 pounds. But he tackles well. He plays hard. He's a guy who he's not a glaring weakness against the run. It's just not his strength. He generally has good run fits. He does a good job there. But again, he's not bulky enough at times to really hold up at the point of attack and that sort of thing. Doesn't have the length to shed. But what he does do is he covers. And it's really interesting to me because on paper, the Chiefs linebacker group, their best coverage guy, and I think it's by a fairly decent margin, is Willie Gay Jr. Despite that, they've treated Nick Bolton as their nickel, their primary nickel, and then even their dime linebacker. Even though while he's made some improvements in coverage since coming to the league, he still has games where he struggles there in terms of some of the things I was just talking about with Tranquil, getting depth. His change of direction and lateral movement are terrific. Exceptional tackler, smart player, but some of his physical limitations show up a little bit more as the dime corner or when he's asked to play zone and cover intermediate stuff. It's one of the things that in week 13, the Bengals repeatedly victimized the middle of the field for the Chiefs defense. And Nick Bolton was one of the culprits there. And that's not the only game that happened. So here's what's interesting to me. The player who it makes the most sense for Tranquil to take snaps from is Nick Bolton. It's simply because Willie Gay Jr., they already take him off the field on 30% of the snaps, give or take, maybe a little more. But it's not just the pure passing down stuff. Those pure passing down stuff, they've generally kept Nick Bolton on the field, and Tranquil makes more sense for those snaps. But the Chiefs never take Nick Bolton off the field. He played 97% of the snaps, actually a little above that last year. So it's kind of an interesting thing. He's not going to take Leo Chanel's snaps. They have very different skill sets. Chanel's more of a Sam linebacker. He's more comfortable playing close to the line of scrimmage or moving vertically. We'll see how he adjusts this year. His change of direction stuff is problematic if you're going to ask him to play in space. But every year that you learn a little more about the position, you're a little more comfortable. Those things improve. But I'm genuinely curious what the Chiefs plan to do with Tranquil, whether they plan to have him, here he is laying a shot on Tyreek Hill. And you notice he's able to backpedal and get enough depth to still contest the pass. And I would argue, had this not gotten tipped, I think Tranquil might have had a shot at a pick here as well. And so what do you do with a linebacker who understands assignments and is able to get depth and is able to cover well? See, like right here, he delivers a shot to Justin Watson, but doesn't get distracted from his zone of responsibility. He's immediately on MVS. What he does right here, he slows down one route, and then he takes away the window for another route. And his snaps are littered with plays like that, where he's a good coverage linebacker. But again, the only way it makes sense for him to get on the field, generally speaking, is going to be to either basically subsume Willie Gay Jr.'s role completely, which would make sense in base packages because Willie Gay Jr. is better against the run. Maybe it's one of the nickel backers, I don't know. Or take Nick Bolton snaps, which again, the Chiefs have generally refused to do. I'm really curious about it. He's on a one-year deal. He reportedly chose the Chiefs over several other teams. It would surprise me if he did that, knowing that he was going to be a backup. And so I'm curious, whether he was promised a certain number of snaps. Teams are careful with what they commit to and that sort of thing. But it would be surprising to me if he didn't at least anticipate coming in and playing some nickel and dime snaps, which, quite frankly, because I've had a lot of people ask me, well, why would they do that? Well, he is a significantly better coverage linebacker, at least was last year, than Nick Bolton. It's really not that close. It's a little closer with Willie Gay Jr. because Gay is more athletic than he is, but he doesn't get taken out of position by play action as well. Seems to have a little bit better feel for route combinations in front of him. He really is today, as of this moment, by a fairly wide margin, the best coverage linebacker in Kansas City, and that doesn't seem like a guy you can take off the field. So he's a really interesting addition that they got for cheap on a one-year deal, and I'm curious what that's going to look like moving forward. Another signing was Mike Edwards with the formerly of the Buccaneers, which was kind of one thing that was kind of nice was seeing people that write about or cheer for the Buccaneers kind of bemoaning the loss of Edwards. But he is a guy who has some starting experience, but he's got a ton of snaps. He's apparently pretty good with the ball. If he's put in a position to make plays, supposedly he's a decent playmaker. I haven't reviewed much of his film, but he's apparently you got yourself an average safety, which I think is someone that they were looking for with the departure of Juan Thornhill. That bumps up Brian Cook to probably the second safety, and you still needed a third safety. What I really like about the signing, it's veteran depth, a guy that's shown that he can handle significant snaps without being a weak spot on the defense. And that's what you're looking for, right? You avoid weak spots on defense. And it eliminates, in theory, that weakness in the third safety spot. And so when you think about some of the areas that the Chiefs had of concern heading into the offseason, well, what were the areas of concern? Linebacker wouldn't have been one of them unless you considered coverage linebacker, which I think is completely fair. So they addressed that. They grab their third safety. They grab a tackle to where they don't have a desperate need at 2. Depending on how they feel about Lucas Niang, they might not even feel they have a need there. We'll see. I personally would probably draft a right tackle, but that's just me. And so the tackle, the dire need there is addressed, and they grabbed a competent, actually good pass rusher who has experience playing inside and out, who is tailor-made to play in Steve Spagnuolo's system. And they still need multiple spots, but it's nice to see them kind of checking a few things off the checklist and making it to where you don't go into the draft with these dire needs. There's 2 places where I'd say their needs are still pretty dire. And they need one more pass rusher. They also don't have a nose tackle on the roster, but it's not that hard to find big bodies there. I mean, Derek Notty's still available in free agency. Hankins is available. I mean, Linval Joseph is still available. You got guys that you could bring in there. So that I wouldn't call that a dire need, but they do need another pass rusher. Right now, they've got a really solid first 4 group in, Amenahu, Jones, Dana, and Karlaftis. Those are 4 guys that if you have them, I'm really comfortable with them. They can all move inside or outside. They're all impact guys in terms of they got good motor. They're good. They're all mutually good at crushing the pocket, winning with strength. And then obviously you have a superstar in Jones. But what's interesting, you need multiple guys to rotate in and out. Amenahu played like 55-ish% of the snaps in San Francisco. And they play with their hair on fire, make no mistake. But most of the time with defensive linemen, you don't want them playing more than 65-70% of the snaps, barring some superstars that are capable of, really upping that ante. Tashawn Wharton should be back. I'm excited to see what he does with Cullen in his second year with Cullen. But you need at least one more body in there, a guy who preferably can play outside and inside. Whether they grab a veteran mercenary, which seems like the most likely thing, but that's something they definitely need to develop because you want to have 6 guys that you're okay with rushing the passer. And right now they've got 5 guys that they're okay with. It would be nice if they could add another dude, as I'm so fond of saying. The other dire need that you all know about that I have saved for last, making it maybe seem like I don't think it's important, but it's more so because just everyone knows it. We don't know what the Chiefs are going to do at wide receiver. Well, here, let me double check Twitter here just while I'm recording this right now because it would be really funny if they did. Nope, no one's done anything crazy. The Chiefs, as of right now, Juju Smith-Schuster got signed away for a relatively palatable $11 million a year. The Chiefs didn't want to match. I understand why with some of the injury concerns, but their current receiver room, your top 3 guys are MVS, Tony, and Sky Moore. I expect Moore to take a jump forward in 2023. My hope is that Tony can be healthier in 2023 and be more integrated into the offense. Those are a couple of pretty big bets right now with a pretty empty room. And that, if there was one area where I think they might do something kind of drastic, that would be the place. But as of right now, the holes in the roster are gradually being filled up. I'm really a fan of the free agency signings they've had so far. Those 4 main ones, Taylor, Amenahu, Tranquill, and Edwards. Those are all guys that can, and some of them should, obviously start. And those are guys that you can count on who've shown they can perform. And it helps staunch the bleeding from losing some of those guys from a Super Bowl roster. So for now, those are the biggest storylines that I see in Chiefs Kingdom. I'm really excited for the fact that as soon as I get done recording this, I'm going to bring the Times Hours curse to this, and we're going to end up with some insane thing occurring and render all this mood. Hopefully Ryan still puts it up there anyway. And in the meantime, it's a terrific week to be a Chiefs fan.